I have quite a few foldable phones at this point in my life, and one of the most interesting things to me about this cornucopia of foldable phones is how distinct each of them are in one key category that is often a big focus here on my channel, and that is multitasking. If you go from a OnePlus device to a Samsung device to a Pixel device, you are going to see pretty huge differences in the ways that these devices handle split screening and floating windows. And I am often asked in my comment section, Shane, which folding phone has the best multitasking experience? And unfortunately, that question is basically impossible to answer because the more you drill down into it, they all have advantages and disadvantages. It's really hard for me to tell you which multitasking setup I like the most. So in this video, I'm going to kind of answer that as best I can by building my best hypothetical multitasking experience by taking the things I like from each different phone and cobbling it together, and through that hopefully you'll kind of understand what my general preferences are. Should be fun. Let's get into it. So right now you are looking at my Galaxy Z Fold 7, and I think that that's a pretty good place to start when it comes to split window multitasking, because it does a lot of this very, very well. So you're able to open up an application, and then you can either use your taskbar to drag up a second app, you can go into an app drawer and drag that second app up, or you can do a two-finger swipe in and select an application from there, and at that point you have two distinct applications. Now, one immediate change that I would make to this is I would grab the gesture navigation from the Pixel Fold, and here's why. On the Z Fold 7, if I go a layer deep into the Play Store and I go a layer deep into this Wise application, on the Z Fold device, whatever app was touched last is in focus. So I'm touching the Play Store. If I swipe back on the right side, the Play Store goes back. Over here, if I bring the Play Store into focus and swipe back over here, it is the Wise application that goes back. I know some of you disagree with me, but I much prefer that setup. It just seems much more intuitive to me. Now, this gets complicated when you do bring in a third application, and that's something that the Pixel Fold really cannot do, and this honestly might be the last time we see the Pixel Fold in this video because it's a pretty limited device. If you stick with just a Samsung device, the Samsung style of split window multitasking, when I bring in my third application, you could keep this same sort of gesture navigation where this would go back here, this would go back here, and this would go back here. It just triggered my quick cursor thing, so ignore that, but you kind of understand what I mean. But if we use what I think is a better split window multitasking system, that does get a little bit complicated, and then you might have to revert to whichever app was in focus last, and then you've changed your behavior, so I'm not exactly sure what the best path forward would be there. But if we do look at some of these more advanced, I think probably better ways of going about having three applications at once so that you don't have one big app and then two small apps, you'll kind of see what I mean. This is the Honor Magic V5, and if I bring up YouTube on it, what you'll see happen is that third app is just sort of flowing off screen. So you have this system where things can go off screen and you can slide back and forth. And in this instance, I think that it does make sense to potentially change that gesture navigation system. And that's actually what Honor does. If I get rid of this application, you can see that Honor is doing this the exact same way as the Pixel, where it's dependent on the side. But if you bring in that third application, you can't really do that anymore. So Wise is now in the middle, and a back swipe goes back on it because it was the last thing that touched. It switches back and forth. But looking at the way that this split screening works, where things are sliding off screen, I think that this is a good step in the right direction because you don't have one or two very small apps, but I think that it's been done better elsewhere. Here I have the Oppo Find N5. You could also substitute in the OnePlus Open. If I do my little up swipe and I go to grab YouTube, when I bring this in, you'll see that things do look very, very similar at first. I got to bring it down here to add it to split view, where we have three apps just basically sliding back and forth. But on this phone, you can tap up here and you can expand, and you see what immediately happens. We go vertical. Now we have basically a full screen app and then two split screen apps that look like traditional split screen. And I can go ahead and expand a second app, and I can expand a third app. And now what we have is this crazy view where everything is just kind of bouncing around, and that is really, really good. Over here on the Honor device, you can expand these applications, and that does like mostly work. But the difference is, one, it's just kind of clunky and slower. Like it's just a more kind of clunky process. But then two, they're side by side by side. And I just think that that's a little bit less useful. I think that this is the better way to go. I also think that Oppo has probably my favorite way to trigger the split screen multitasking. If you're in an app, you can do a two-finger swipe down, it splits open, and there is your home screen, and you can just tap a second app, and there you go. That is really, really good. So what I want is the gesture navigation from the Honor device or the Pixel device. I want open canvas from the Oppo device. I want my two-finger swipe down from the Oppo device, but I do actually want to steal one more thing from the Honor phone that I think is worth noting. If I pull this thing back out and I have an application open, and then let's say I go ahead and just grab Wise again and throw it up here. I really, really like this as well. The way that their handle works up here. I can grab this app and throw it away, and that slides it over, and I can select a second app that way. I really like the way that they do their stuff with their handles, where you can trigger floating window. Let's put this back in split screen. I think that you can swap places as well. I really like how fluid that actually feels, and I use that all the time when I'm using this phone, just to toss an app away. So we're going to grab that as well. Recentering these a little bit better. You just saw a floating window on the Honor device, and it's very, very similar to how a floating window works on the Oppo device. If I tap both of these handles up here, let's go into floating window or drop zone. It's what they call it. You'll see that this is really, really similar. They both have a handle up top that allows them to be moved around. They can both be resized, but they don't change aspect ratio. They just get resized. You can toss them both over. I think we did something slightly different with both of these. Yeah, so they like to go into this mini mode instead. But you do have a mini mode over here as well. If you shrink it down sufficiently, it will kind of throw itself up into that corner. These are very, very similar. And I think that they both are a little worse than what Samsung has. So on the Samsung device, if I swipe up and hold, I can go into this pop-up view. And the cool thing about it is that not only can you resize it, you can change the aspect ratio as well. You can do whatever you want with this floating window. You can toss it off the screen just like that. This is, to me, I think far and away the most flexible floating window that anybody has. Honestly, I think I would just steal their version of their floating window whole cloth. I don't think I really need to do anything else. I think I would just take exactly what Samsung has. There's one more thing I want to touch on when it comes to multitasking. And what you're seeing here on my Honor Magic V5 is something that you might be confused about. What this is supposed to be is a trackpad, because yes, indeed, just like the Z Fold 7, this thing does have a proper functioning desktop mode with some caveats. So this is that desktop mode running, and this is a touchscreen monitor, which is cool because that means I can just reach out here and just touch these things, and I can open up applications and move them around, and you can do all kinds of things just like Samsung DeX. This really does work quite well. Here's my problem. This trackpad doesn't seem to work at all. I've tried this on 3 different monitors, 2 different monitors, and a lap dock, and this just doesn't seem to work. I wonder, maybe it works whenever it is in phone mode. Does it work here? No, I don't understand what's wrong here. This just does not, it just doesn't work for me at all. So like, while I do like this, I like the way that it looks. I think that it seems to work quite well. You can't use your phone, it's just broken. And that kind of speaks to me to a little bit of maybe a lack of polish here with this system, which is again a shame, because I like the way that it looks. I like this like nice soft blur and everything that they have going on, and everything does seem to work as expected. But because of that, we just kind of have to go with Samsung DeX because this trackpad stuff actually works. You guys are familiar with Samsung DeX. We've talked about it a million times, and it works fantastically well. Everything is just kind of as you would expect it to be. You can snap windows just like you saw over there. I think it looks quite good, and I think, again, most importantly, everything's just functioning correctly. Now, of course, if I am truly fantasy booking this phone, I would be remiss if I did not mention Surface Duo. if I could snap my fingers and have exactly what I wanted, I think we would be on Surface Duo like 5 or 6 by now, and that's what I would want. A true, not the folding screen thing they were talking about for Duo 3. Throw that in the garbage can. Keep the dual screen thing going on with modern specs and modern cameras and all that kind of stuff, but still have dual screen where each screen acts independently. You touch an app on one screen, that's where it opens. You go back on that screen, that is where you go back. Add in split screening on each one of those independent screens. So each screen, I've said screen about 43 times, each one can have 2 applications on it at the same time instead of one. Put little handles in there so you can kind of swap them all back and forth and move them all around really naturally. Man, you could build something that in terms of multitasking could be absolutely amazing. And then Microsoft, go ahead and build your own version of Dex that looks a bit like Windows. Plug that in, and there you go. So again, if I'm going to completely just make stuff up, that's the way I would probably want to go. I think that would be an amazing, amazing device. But I think it is interesting that through this, Samsung basically, I ended up just taking what they have completely when it came to floating windows and DeX. I said, we don't even need to add anything else, just take those and use those. With their split screening, I do think that they have fallen a little bit behind, just simply because I've never thought that the way that they do 3 apps on screen makes a ton of sense to me, because 2 of those apps are absolutely tiny. I do appreciate that they've added the 90-10 split thing, but let's go a step further. Let's find a way to have that third app on screen in a more, to me, more usable way. But they did dominate the other 2 categories in totality. So that's pretty interesting. This honestly ended up being probably the best comparison between these different multitasking setups that I've probably made yet, by kind of going through them and deciding which ones I like better. So hopefully this has been an interesting and useful video for you guys out there looking for the optimal multitasking experience. Maybe that's given you some good information. Let me know in the comments down below how you would mix and match these, what you would build if you had the ability to do that. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.